He swore he would make her his wife, no matter the cost. But what was supposed to be just a bet of pride between billionaires turned into a trap for his own heart. Because he didn't expect that woman, the one who dared to say no to the most influential man in the city, to carry a secret that would change everything. And he certainly didn't expect that, on their wedding night, she would reveal something capable of dismantling even the most guarded heart. What happens when the game turns into truth, when desire becomes feeling, and when a buried secret threatens to destroy everything, just as love finally begins to blossom? This story will keep you hooked from start to finish. Because not always does the villain know they're the villain. And sometimes, the coldest heart is the one that longs to be loved the most. And before we begin, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a story like this. Oh, and drop a comment below, letting me know which city you're tuning in from. I love knowing how far this story is reaching. Liam Carter wasn't used to hearing the word no. At 35, he was the type of man who could shake the market with a single phone call. Owner of a telecom empire with mansions on 3 continents and regular appearances on the covers of the world's most prestigious business magazines, he knew what he wanted, and usually he got it. That's why when Charlotte Bennett turned down a dinner invitation, Liam was stunned. At first, he thought she hadn't understood who he was, an easy mistake to make. But Charlotte, with that calm and steady gaze, had understood perfectly. And still, she turned him down. They had met during the opening of an artistic innovation center in Manhattan. Charlotte, an award-winning interior designer, had been responsible for the space's aesthetic. And Liam, one of the largest investors in the project, had been watching intently as she spoke about colors, with the same passion as someone describing a sunset. "Mr. Carter, it was a pleasure talking to you, but I'd prefer to keep my evening free tonight." Her voice was firm but polite, and Liam was speechless. James Holloway, Liam's best friend and right-hand man, didn't miss the chance to tease him. "I bet she's the first one in a long time to leave you talking to yourself. It won't last. Give me 6 months and she'll say yes at the altar." That's when the playful banter turned into a bet, one of those they used to make back in college. But this time, it was about more than just male pride. Liam couldn't stand the idea of being ignored. There was something about this woman that challenged him, and he hated losing challenges. "If I don't make Charlotte fall in love with me and marry me by the end of the semester, you can pick any one of my properties in Aspen." James laughed but accepted. "Deal, but I want it in writing." From that moment on, Liam began to see her not just as an intriguing woman, but as a target to be conquered. The problem was, the more he watched her, the more he realized Charlotte wasn't like the others. She wasn't impressed by figures or powerful last names. She had principles and a calm that disarmed him, and without even knowing it, Charlotte had become the exception that could turn the game around. Liam had no idea that, in trying to tame the only woman who didn't bend to his charm, he would end up risking his own heart and the little bit of his true self that was still intact. And it was with that thought that he made the first move, a professional, irresistible invitation, but with intentions that went far beyond papers, blueprints, and designs. The next morning, Liam sent a formal email with a tempting proposal. He wanted to completely renovate his mansion in East Hampton, an exclusive $1 million project with total creative freedom. It was the kind of work any high-end designer would accept without a second thought. Charlotte, however, took her time. She read and reread the proposal before responding. She knew there was something behind that invitation, but it was also a professional opportunity that was hard to turn down, and she needed the contract. Her studio was growing, but the costs to maintain it were high. Accepting meant stability, visibility, and proximity to the man who clearly was used to manipulating the scenarios around him. "We can discuss the terms, but I want to make it clear that my involvement will be strictly professional. No dinners, no dates, just work." The reply came a few hours later with only 3 words. "I agree with everything." Liam Carter was willing to play by her rules, or at least pretend he was. Charlotte's first visits to the mansion revealed the good taste hidden behind Liam's cold exterior. She quickly realized he was more observant than he let on. He paid attention to every fabric choice, every color, palette, every detail in the sketches she scribbled. And over time, the formal meetings began giving way to longer conversations, coffee breaks on the porch, and glances that lingered a few seconds longer than they should have. Charlotte, with her quiet elegance, remained firm, but something inside her was starting to shift. Liam was arrogant, yes, but he was also attentive, curious, and at times vulnerable. She caught him one afternoon, standing in silence, looking at an old portrait in the hallway of the library. A blonde boy, with sad eyes, sitting next to a stern father. Liam's gaze in that photo seemed to echo in the present. "Is that you?" "I used to be," and nothing more was said. Liam was beginning to realize that Charlotte wasn't a prize. She was a mirror. And in front of her, he saw the parts of himself he had buried in order to survive. But he couldn't lose focus now. Time was running out. The bet was still on. And no matter how much something inside him screamed that he had crossed the line, he kept going, pretending to be in control. Even when his own mansion, once cold and impersonal, started to come alive because of her. Charlotte walked through the mansion's corridors, clipboard in hand, her mind full of ideas, but there was one detail that she couldn't ignore: the way Liam's eyes followed her. It wasn't crude or persistent. It was a silent curiosity, as if he were trying to decipher her piece by piece. She pretended not to notice, but each time he came near, her heart raced just a little faster. The line between professionalism and desire began to blur in their conversations about lighting and curtain fabrics. Liam would comment on the warm tones chosen for the library, as if discussing coziness. But his eyes said something else. "You're bringing soul to this place, Charlotte." She smiled, trying to maintain her composure. "That's what you paid me to do, isn't it?" "No, I paid you for technique, but it's your presence that's transforming everything." The tension was palpable, but they both pretended not to notice. Then one day, while reviewing the details of the new winter garden, something slipped out of control. They were too close. Their fingers lightly brushed as they turned a page of the plan. Charlotte looked up. Liam didn't look away. "You feel it too, don't you?" She didn't respond. She simply took a deep breath. And then, the kiss happened. It wasn't planned. It wasn't careful. It was urgent, filled with everything they'd both been trying to deny. When they pulled away, there was silence. A silence that said everything and nothing at the same time. Charlotte stood up, grabbed her purse and left, leaving behind the open plan and a heart in disarray. That same night, Liam received an envelope. Inside, there were confidential documents about acquisitions of competing companies. Someone on Charlotte's team had made a mistake and included the material by accident in the reference package. But Liam, already suspicious of the coincidences that fate seemed to be throwing his way, interpreted it as espionage. His pride spoke louder. Without waiting for an explanation, he blocked Charlotte's access, suspended the work, and accused her of betrayal. Charlotte, confused and hurt, tried to explain. She sent messages, called, even searched for Liam in person. But he didn't receive her. The door that had slowly been opening had slammed shut, and behind it, Liam withdrew into the pain he knew best, the pain of not trusting anyone. The following days seemed to drag time with a cruel slowness. Charlotte woke up early as usual, but there was no project waiting. No phone calls, no messages. The mansion in East Hampton, which had become part of her routine, almost a silent extension of the bond she was building with Liam, was now just a painful memory. She couldn't understand. Everything fell apart so quickly, without her being able to defend herself. The way Liam had looked at her in their last encounter, cold, as if there had never been a touch, a kiss, a deeper intention. "You lied to me, Charlotte. I thought you were different." These words echoed in her mind like a hammer against the glass of trust she had worked so hard to build. On the other side, Liam couldn't sleep. He spent the nights locked in his office, reviewing papers, messages, and moments. He wanted to convince himself that he was right, that the connection, the kiss, that bond, was nothing more than a strategy. and that Charlotte was just another one trying to get close for convenience. But something inside him hurt, and he hated feeling pain. James tried to intervene. "You're hiding behind your pride, Liam. Again. Did you see the documents?" "Yes, but did you see what came with them? Sketches, gift ideas, plans for a space she called the Carter Retreat. Does that look like betrayal to you?" Liam fell silent. For the first time, doubt planted a seed. Charlotte, in turn, sought strength in the details. She returned to old projects, surrounded herself with friends. But something had changed. She had been touched in a deep place, not just by the unfair accusation, but by the coldness with which she had been discarded by someone she was starting to trust, and maybe even love. Days turned into weeks. The phone stayed silent. Until one night, while reorganizing a file of documents, Charlotte found a card hidden among the papers for the mansion project, a sketch she had made for Liam's bedroom. In the bottom corner, she had written by hand, "Even the coldest walls can hold warmth if there's someone willing to light the fireplace." She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and cried. Liam wasn't the type of man to doubt his own decisions. But for the first time in a long while, he felt weak, the kind of weakness that money and corporate victories couldn't heal. It was another type of emptiness, the one that settles in when something real is lost to pride. It was James's, words that kept hammering in his mind, and that drawing, Carter's Retreat. That didn't make sense if she was really trying to harm him. Reluctantly, Liam turned to the only resource he trusted when his instincts failed: investigation. He hired a discreet specialist, someone outside his usual network. He asked him to check everything and everyone: Charlotte, her team, the document shipments, and then the truth emerged, like a wave that invades and sweeps away everything in its path. The papers had been sent by mistake by a new assistant who didn't even know what they contained. Charlotte wasn't just innocent. She had been secretly working on a gift for Liam, a special space in the mansion, designed as a sanctuary of peace, a counterpoint to the world of demands and pressure he lived in. Shame hit him hard. That same night, Liam walked alone through the mansion. Every room carried something she had transformed: the paintings, the soft light in the hallway, the new library with comfortable armchairs he hadn't even noticed before. Everything there had her signature, not just professionally but emotionally. He sat on the floor of the main room, his eyes fixed on the lit fireplace. The warmth rising was the exact opposite of what he had made Charlotte feel: cold, rejection, injustice. And then something inside him broke. For the first time in years, Liam cried. No witnesses, no reservations. He cried not for his wounded pride, but for guilt, for having pushed away the only woman who had looked him in the eyes without asking for anything. Just truth. The next morning, he made a decision. He made a video, not a formal message, nor a rational plea. It was a sort of visual diary. He showed every corner of the house that had been brought to life by Charlotte's ideas. He interspersed it with simple phrases, recorded in his own voice. "You taught me what true value is. You saw parts of me I had forgotten. I lost more than a partner. I lost the chance to become a better person." And he sent the video with one line of text in the body of the email. "Sorry isn't enough, but it's a start." Charlotte wasn't expecting anything anymore. The email came on a regular afternoon, as she was reviewing the plans for a commercial project. The name Liam Carter on the screen made her heart hesitate for a second. She could ignore it. She could delete it. But something in the simplicity of the subject line, "Sorry isn't enough," made her click. The video began with the soft sound of an instrumental tune in the background. The first image was of the mansion's entrance. Then, the corridors, the library, the room, with hay, the shades of blue she had chosen so carefully. Each scene showed not just the environment, but the look of someone who now saw what was once invisible, the intention behind the details. And then came Liam's voice, raspy, sincere. "This house was just walls. You brought its soul. I believed in something wrong, and I destroyed what was most real. You touched me and I hid." Charlotte stood still. A tear fell without warning. This wasn't a melodramatic declaration. It was almost a whisper of regret. A confession that didn't ask for forgiveness directly, but offered something more difficult: vulnerability. At the end of the video, one last image, the room that would become the Carter's retreat, still under construction. And on the table, the sketches she had drawn by hand. Liam had framed them. The screen darkened and only one sentence appeared: "I don't know how to fix it, but I want to learn with you." Charlotte pressed her hand to her chest, took a deep breath. It was as if the ground, once cracked, now offered space for a new step. But it wouldn't be easy. None of it would be. Still, it was real. She replied with a single sentence: "I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'm listening." It was enough for Liam to start over. That night he slept for the first time without guilt, and with a new certainty. There was still hope, and now he would have to show, through actions, everything the video had revealed in words. The meetings came back slowly. First short, objective emails, then a quick phone call. No promises, no reopening of wounds, just two adults trying to understand if there was still something worth rebuilding. Liam, now calmer, approached with respect. He didn't invade. He waited. And Charlotte, although still hurt, noticed the effort and the difference. The confident and proud man who had unjustly accused her was now replaced by someone more human, more willing to listen. It was on an autumn Sunday that he invited her to visit the mansion. "It's not a trap, I promise. I just want to show you something." She agreed. Out of curiosity? Maybe. But also because of that thread of feeling that still pulsed, persistent. When she arrived, she found the house in silence, but alive. There were fresh flowers in the entrance hall, a soft track echoing through the speakers, and on the table in the living room, a notebook with the notes she had left months ago carefully preserved. Liam appeared at the top of the stairs. He was without a tie, without his usual pose. Just him. "You taught me that home isn't a place, it's who's inside it." Charlotte didn't know what to say. She just watched, until he descended the last steps, stopped in front of her, and without ceremony, kneeled. "I know. I don't have the right to ask this now, but I have to try." He took a small blue velvet box from his pocket. Inside, a simple, elegant ring with one detail. The central stone was surrounded by a band in the shape of a fireplace, a reference to the sketch she had drawn for the Carter retreat. "It's not about fixing the past. It's about building a future. With truth, with you. Charlotte Bennett, will you marry me?" She didn't respond immediately. Time seemed to freeze. She felt her heart beat in her temples, in the tips of her fingers, in her throat. And then, with teary eyes and a choked voice, she said, "Yes, but this time no games." "Never again," he replied. That night the tabloids went wild. "Who conquered the inaccessible Carter?" the headlines screamed. But what none of them knew is that it wasn't Charlotte who conquered him. It was Liam who finally allowed himself to be touched. Engaged. The word still sounded surreal to Charlotte. Sometimes when she looked at the ring on her finger, she found herself smiling alone, and then sighing deeply. Because along with the sparkle came the weight. Being Liam Carter's fiancée wasn't just a romantic title, it was a public one. And with it came expectations, judgments, and the spotlight. The first to make this clear was Evelyn Carter, Liam's mother, an elegant, discreet woman, and as cold as the corridors of the old wing of the mansion. Evelyn didn't openly show disdain, but her evaluative gaze, indirect questions, and smiles that never reached her eyes made it clear she didn't approve of Charlotte. "You have good taste. Surprising, considering your origins." "Thank you. Art has always been my refuge. I hope it continues to be. Liam's world demands resilience." Charlotte swallowed each indirect remark with the grace of someone who had been underestimated before. But inside, she felt the weariness of having to prove her worth once again. Liam, on his part, tried to shield her. He cancelled commitments, rearranged schedules, stayed by her side at family gatherings, even when the tension hung in the air like sparks about to ignite. "I don't care what they think, Charlotte. I care about how you feel. Then listen to me, this wears me down. I don't want to fight for space, I just want to breathe. It was true, the pressure of the preparations, the paparazzi lurking, the public appearances with rehearsed smiles. Everything was starting to push away what really mattered, the essence between them. But there were refuges, the improvised studio in Charlotte's house, where they escaped the formalities and laughed as if the world wasn't watching. The nights, when he cooked, badly but with effort, and she pretended to compliment him. The conversations in the car when they drove aimlessly and allowed themselves to just be. Liam and Charlotte. The ceremony was approaching. The dress, the guest list, the suppliers, the rehearsals. But what no one saw was that behind all the beauty, there was a couple trying to balance love on a stage full of voices and judgments. And then, like an unexpected breeze, came Liam's invitation. Let's go to Bora Bora, just the two of us. No press, no traditions, just us. Charlotte didn't hesitate. The sky over Bora Bora looked hand-painted that night. The ceremony, intimate and quiet, had taken place at sunset, with the calm sea serving as a witness. Charlotte walked barefoot to the altar, in a light dress that swirled with the wind. Liam waited for her under an arch of white flowers, his smile revealing more nervousness than arrogance. They said yes with teary eyes. There were no rehearsed speeches, no grand promises. Just two people, broken and rebuilt, choosing each other in front of nature and the silence itself. Later, in the beachfront bungalow, the world seemed suspended. The sound of the waves, the soft light of the candles, the breeze coming through. The veranda. Everything conspired for the most awaited moment. Charlotte was beautiful, but there was something more. A different shine in her eyes, as if she were on the brink of something deep. Liam, seeing her standing on the veranda, approached calmly. He lightly touched her shoulder. "Are you okay?" She turned around, and then, without preamble, with the courage that only trust can bring, she said, "Liam, I've never been with anyone before. I'm a virgin." Time stopped. Liam blinked a few times, unable to hide his surprise, not from judgment but from reverence. This woman, strong, authentic, self-assured, was holding this moment with a rare delicacy. There was no shame in her voice. There was surrender. He approached slowly, cupped her face in both his hands and whispered, "You don't have to prove anything. I just want you to feel loved, respected, safe. We have our whole life." But Charlotte smiled, her eyes teary. "I trust you, and I want this moment to be ours right now." What happened that night wasn't just physical. It was a meeting of souls. Liam was patient, gentle, careful. Every touch was a silent apology. Every kiss a way of saying, "I'm here." He didn't make love only with his body. He made love with regret, with tenderness, with the desire. To deserve the love he was now receiving, Charlotte surrendered body and soul. Her fears dissolved in the warmth of his arms. And Liam cried. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of her trust as a redemption. That night, the game ended. There were no more bets, no more facades, just two naked hearts, ready to start over. But what Liam didn't know is that something from the past was still watching them, and it would come to light sooner than he expected. The first days in Bora Bora felt like a dream that refused to end. Charlotte and Liam woke up without hurry, had coffee facing the sea, and talked about everything, about nothing. Liam seemed lighter, Charlotte more confident. The world felt distant, and there in that blue refuge, only the newborn love between them existed. But paradise, as always, was fragile. When they returned to New York, Liam's schedule pulled him back with force. Meetings, appointments, urgent phone calls. Charlotte tried to keep up, staying strong, but something inside her could no longer fit in the silence. There was a strange feeling, an intuition. It was on an ordinary afternoon, as she was leaving a bookstore, that everything fell apart. "Charlotte," she turned and faced a face she hadn't seen in over 2 years. Noah Turner, her ex-boyfriend, someone who had been part of a difficult chapter in her life. He looked at her with a mixture of longing and concern. But what he said next changed everything. "I tried to warn you. You know that this thing with Liam started because of a bet, right?" Charlotte's world spun. "What are you talking about?" It was James. I work with someone close to him. I heard it earlier this year. They bet that Carter could make you fall in love and marry him. In 6 months. Charlotte didn't respond. Her breathing quickened. Her chest tightened. She tried to deny it with her mind, but her heart already knew. The bet. Liam's initial behavior. The sudden persistence. It all started as a game. Noah tried to explain, to say he just wanted to warn her. But Charlotte wasn't listening anymore. She just walked aimlessly, until she reached home. She sat on the floor of the living room, cell phone in hand, and typed, "Is this true?" Liam's response took time, and when it came, it was too short to contain everything she needed. "Charlotte, please, let me explain." She didn't respond. She just grabbed her suitcase, packed a few clothes, and left. But there was something more, something she discovered days later, alone, sitting at the edge of the bed with a test in her hands. 2 red lines, clear, unmistakable. Charlotte was pregnant. The test sat on the sink like a silent sentence. Charlotte stared at the 2 red lines, unsure of what to feel. Was there joy there? Maybe. But it was covered by thick layers of confusion, hurt, and fear. She was pregnant with a man who had played with her feelings. A love that seemed real, and maybe still was, but had been poisoned from the start by a bet. How could she trust something that began as a farce? She instinctively placed her hand on her stomach. There were no changes to her body yet. But inside, the universe was already shifting. A new heart was beginning to beat, and with it the question, should she tell Liam or not? She decided not to. Not out of revenge, but for self-preservation. She needed to compose herself. She needed to understand who she was now that she carried someone else inside of her. She returned to living discreetly. She turned down media invitations, cancelled events, avoided questions. She gave up on bigger projects. She accepted only the small ones, something she could do in silence with her hands while organizing the chaos in her chest. Liam, on the other hand, lived in urgency. He searched for Charlotte in every corner of the city. He called, left messages, sent flowers, letters, but everything returned unanswered. The only clue was the silence, a silence that tore him apart more than any accusation. He knew she had found out. James had confessed everything, consumed by guilt, and Liam sank in regret. I didn't want it to be a game. It just started as one. And by the time I realized it wasn't anymore, it was love. And you didn't have the courage to tell me? I was afraid of losing you. And in the end, I lost. Meanwhile, Charlotte consulted with doctors, read about motherhood, bought books on baby development, all on her own. She didn't feel like a victim, but she didn't feel ready to forgive either. One afternoon, as she walked out of a pharmacy with vitamins in hand, she stopped when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Charlotte," she turned slowly. It was Liam. His gaze first stopped on the bags, then on her eyes, and then on the small bump now visible under her coat. A dense silence hung between them. "Are you—" She didn't answer. She just nodded. And before she could say anything, Liam took a step forward. "Let me be a part of this, please." But Charlotte wasn't ready. Not yet. That night was long. Charlotte came home and closed all the windows as if that could drown out the storm inside her, reliving that encounter, feeling Liam's gaze on her belly, hearing his choked voice. All of it reopened wounds that had barely begun to heal. He saw her. He knew. And contrary to what she had imagined, he didn't run. He didn't accuse her. He didn't flee. He begged for a place, even if it was small, in this new chapter that was about to begin. The next day, he showed up. He didn't warn her. He was standing in front of her building, hands in his pockets with a look of someone who no longer had pride to protect. "I know I'm the last person who should be here, but I had to." Charlotte hesitated, but she opened the gate. He walked in silently, as if stepping into someone else's sanctuary. They sat on the couch at a safe distance like 2 strangers with too many stories between them. He was the first to speak. The bet was real. It started as something stupid. I thought I could control everything, even my feelings, but you turned everything upside down. When I realized it, it was too late. I was in love, for real, and I was scared of losing you if I told you. Charlotte listened to him but didn't give in. The words were beautiful, but they had been spoken before. You destroyed something that was just beginning. You made me doubt myself, and now you expect me to trust just because you showed up with red eyes. No, I don't expect anything. I just want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. She looked away. The tears came silently, not because of him, but because of everything she had been through alone. Liam then pulled out a small box from his pocket. It wasn't an expensive gift. It was something simpler, a silver necklace with a hollow heart-shaped pendant, and inside it a miniature fireplace. It's just a symbol, to remind you that you taught me what it means to warm a place with presence, and that even if you don't let me come back, I'll fight to deserve to be close. Charlotte didn't say yes, but she didn't push him away either. And when he stood up and left, she stayed there holding the necklace, her heart torn between the painful past and the possibility of a future that maybe still existed. Time didn't heal everything, but it gave space for things to breathe. Charlotte didn't forgive him right away, and nor did she make any promises, but little by little she allowed Liam to get closer again. Nothing grand, just simple gestures. Small things that, coming from him, carried an unexpected weight. He started by leaving flowers at the door with handwritten notes. Then he sent books about motherhood, with sticky notes on pages he thought were interesting but a little scary. Charlotte laughed to herself as she read some of the comments. It was strange seeing that man, once so inaccessible, making an effort with simple tasks, like understanding what a baby shower was. She didn't invite him, but sometimes he showed up with absurd excuses. I brought a pie, ate half on the way, but I thought you'd like it. Or, I found an app that tells you the baby's size compared to fruits. Today it's a peach. One day he showed up with the key to a new space. It's yours, a studio, your studio, a place just for you, where you can create without interruptions. I didn't put my name on anything. I don't want control. I just want to give you back a little of what I took. Charlotte was silent for a moment, too long, and then, for the first time in weeks, she hugged him. It wasn't a romantic hug. It was something more intimate, a gesture of relief, of recognition. He wasn't trying to fix her. He was trying to fix himself, and that made all the difference. The days began to regain color again. Charlotte organized the studio, and Liam helped with paint, boxes, even crooked shelves. Sometimes he stayed silent, watching her work. Other times he talked too much, trying to hide the fear still in his eyes. They didn't talk about reconciliation. They didn't need to. They were living, sharing moments that had once seemed impossible. She started letting him join her at doctor's appointments, at baby clothes shopping, even at an afternoon of name-picking, where he seriously suggested, "What if we name it? Wi-Fi Carter? Liam." Okay, it was a joke, but let me keep trying. She smiled, a real smile. And there, between bad jokes, paint on the floor, and the sound of the baby's heartbeat on the ultrasound, something new was born. It wasn't the happily ever after, but it was a beginning, a new beginning, and this time without shallow promises, just presence, effort, and comfortable silence. The weeks passed like pages in a book that, little by little, stopped being a drama and began to take on hues of hope. Charlotte still slept alone, still guarded her words and gestures with caution, but Liam, he was still there, tireless, without haste, without demands. One day, she surprised him. "Would you like to come with me to find out the baby's gender?" The question sounded simple, but Liam stopped, as if he had heard the most awaited word in the world. "Of course. I'd love to." The clinic was small, with soft lighting and a lavender scent. Charlotte lay down, her eyes fixed on the screen, while the doctor moved the device over her belly. Liam, standing beside her, held his breath. And when the image appeared clearly, the doctor smiled. "It's a boy." Charlotte laughed, really laughed, with her hands on her face, as if receiving news that changed everything. Liam just watched her. He couldn't hold back the tears. There they were, unpretentious, without masks. Just them in front of the miracle that now bound them together definitively. On the way out, Charlotte surprised him again. "I've been thinking about names." "Really?" "Me too, but nothing with technology, I promise," she smiled. "What if we name him Benjamin?" Liam fell silent. "My grandfather's name was Benjamin. The only man who loved me unconditionally." Charlotte nodded slowly. "Then it's decided, that was it. A name, a decision made together, the first yes since the chaos. And there were no bent knees, no ring, just a silent consensus between two hearts in reconstruction. From that day forward, things began to take on a different rhythm. They walked together again, side by side. Liam picked her up for doctor's appointments. He helped with the shopping. He read books about fatherhood. And one night, lying on the floor of the new studio, he placed the headphones on Charlotte's belly and said, "Listen, Ben, this is jazz. You'll love it." She watched silently, and for the first time, she felt the fear retreat. There was still much to heal, but in that moment, between one song and another, between a gentle touch and an unguarded smile, Charlotte was certain there was space for love to blossom, without urgency, without pressure. Benjamin, even before being born, had already brought together what once seemed impossible. Charlotte's studio came to life. Amid paints, fabrics, and half-finished coffees, she was once again creating with freedom. It was as if every stroke in her projects reflected something inside her rearranging itself. And Liam, he was nearby, not like before, the owner of the space controlling everything, but as support, silent, constant. He made a point of picking up supplies, assembling furniture, even preparing snacks, with questionable quality. He didn't want to impress. He wanted to be present. And this, little by little, restored Charlotte's trust in a way that words never could. One night after a long day in the studio, Charlotte found an envelope on her desk. Inside was the original contract of the bet with James, torn into pieces. Next to it, a note. "I'm no longer the man who signed this. I hope one day I deserve to be the man with whom you can sign a new story." She held the torn paper for a few seconds, took a deep breath. There was pain there, yes, but there was also choice, and in that moment she began to forgive, not for him, but for herself, for Benjamin, for the future that could still be rewritten. Life continued simply, but intensely. Charlotte faced the ups and downs of pregnancy, with the strength she had always had, but now divided. Liam helped her put on shoes, massaged her swollen feet, and made her laugh with poor impersonations of cartoon voices. He seemed different, lighter, more real. They worked together in the studio. They designed together. They planned Benjamin's room with the same enthusiasm they had once reserved only for business meetings. Now they were there for something greater, something that connected them beyond the difficult past, the genuine desire to build something on real grounds. And it was on a rainy afternoon, with the sound of water hitting the windows and Charlotte napping on the couch with her hand on her belly, that Liam realized. The bet was over. Redemption began there. No applause, no headlines. Just in the tranquility of a woman asleep and a future that at last seemed possible. The sky over New York looked strange that morning. Heavy clouds covered the city, and a cold breeze slipped through the cracks of the windows. Charlotte woke up with a mild but different pain, a discomfort that didn't go away with deep breaths. Deep down she knew. The time had come. Liam was organizing the cabinets in Benjamin's room when he heard the call. "Liam, I think it's starting." He froze for a second. Then he ran, clumsy, nervous, trying to remember everything he had read in the books. He grabbed the pre-packed bag, called the obstetrician, and ordered the car. On the way, he tried to stay calm, but his hand never left hers for a second. The hospital felt like a different universe. Lights, voices, endless hallways. Charlotte breathed deeply, focused, determined. Liam stayed close, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement. With teary eyes, "You can do it, my love. I'm here. I know, just stay." Hours later, with a sweat-soaked face and determined eyes, Charlotte pushed one last time. A loud cry filled the room. Benjamin entered the world with strength, life, and peace. The doctor placed him on her chest, and Charlotte cried silently, caressing his tiny, rosy face. Liam stood by, speechless, his hands in his hair, his body trembling. And then, finally, he allowed himself to cry. He's perfect. He's ours. Later in the room, Liam held Benjamin in his arms for the first time. The baby grasped his finger tightly, and that was enough to break down everything left of armor in his heart. For the first time in his life, Liam Carter didn't want control. He just wanted to be there, completely. He sat next to Charlotte, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Thank you for giving me the greatest gift I never dreamed I deserved." She smiled, tired but fulfilled. "You didn't win anything. You chose to be here, and he will know that." In that simple room, without flashes, without headlines, a family was born. Not by chance nor by a bet, but by love, by surrender, by everything that endured and was rebuilt. Benjamin slept peacefully, and between them there was a silence that didn't need to be filled, because there, for the first time, everything was exactly where it was meant to be. The former headquarters of Carter Corporation, now transformed into a space for innovation and social impact, was quieter than ever that afternoon. Liam had reserved the main auditorium without telling anyone. He called Charlotte for a surprise presentation, which, coming from him, could mean anything from art to madness. She arrived suspiciously, wearing a light blazer and carrying Benjamin in a snug sling against her chest. The reception was empty, and the hallway lights flickered softly. When she entered the main hall, she saw what he had done. A path of lights projected on the floor led to the center of the stage. Each step was accompanied by projections on the panels, images of the studio, the mansion, the bungalow in Bora Bora, intimate moments, the two of them painting a wall, laughing in the supermarket, exchanging glances while rocking the baby. Charlotte didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her hands trembled. Liam entered from the side. No suit, no pose, just him. He held a simple, elegant wooden box in his hands. "The first time I asked you to marry me, I was trying to fix a mistake. Now I'm just wanting to continue a choice." He kneeled, but Benjamin, restless on his mother's chest, began to mumble softly. Liam smiled. "I think he approves." Charlotte laughed through her tears. "I didn't prepare a speech. I don't have $1 million ring or a party with drones, but I have you, and that already feels more than I deserve." He opened the box. Inside, 2 rings with the name Benjamin engraved inside. One for her, one for him. Now I want to do it all over again, but right. No games, no bets, just love. Charlotte Bennett. Will you marry me again? She looked at him for a long moment. The past still existed, but it didn't hurt like before. The present was there, in the child sleeping in her lap. And the future finally seemed clear, open, and possible. Yes, this time, for real. Liam carefully embraced her, kissing her forehead, while Benjamin sighed in deep sleep. In that moment there was no audience, but there was history, and it had just gained a new chapter. This time there were no endless guest lists, no demanding protocols, no imported flowers. Charlotte and Liam's second wedding was exactly as they wanted, intimate, genuine, without excess, just the essentials: love, family, and a renewed promise. The ceremony took place in the garden of the new home they had chosen together, a peaceful retreat with fruit trees around, tall grass just high enough for Benjamin to crawl safely, and a porch with hammocks swaying in the wind. Charlotte wore a light dress with hand-embroidered details made by a friend from the studio. On her feet, nothing. She wanted to feel the ground. Liam, in a white shirt and linen pants, seemed like a different man, lighter, more whole, more himself. Benjamin, now just a few months old, was the one responsible for carrying the rings. He wore a small pillow tied to his chest, in an adapted baby carrier with James's help, who, emotional, almost cried even before the ceremony started. To the soft sound of a violin, Charlotte walked toward Liam without hurry. Their eyes said everything. There were no more secrets, no more masks. They saw each other, they accepted each other. And most importantly, they chose each other, with the scars, the mistakes, the fresh starts. The officiant gave a brief, heartfelt speech, and when he asked if there was anything they wanted to say to each other, Liam took a deep breath and, with a trembling voice, spoke, "I promised to love you on paper. Today I promise with my soul. You rebuilt me without realizing it, and now I want to live every day proving that I deserve this love." Charlotte held his hands. "You didn't rebuild me. You rebuilt yourself by my side. And that's what I choose to live, a love that grows with truth, not perfection." The rings slid onto their fingers as if they had always belonged there. And when Liam kissed Charlotte, there were no rehearsed applause, no photographers, just the sound of stifled laughter, sincere tears, and the soft grumble of Benjamin disturbed by so much emotion. The celebration was in the backyard. A simple cake, lights hanging from the trees, and a playlist made by Charlotte. They danced barefoot, surrounded by their closest friends. No spotlights, no pressure, just love. And that night, when they lay down together with Benjamin sleeping, beside them Charlotte whispered, "Now we're married." Liam looked at her, smiled, and whispered back, "Now we're whole." The days passed without spectacle, but filled with meaning. Real life began there, far from dramatic plots, bets, and falls. Now it was about routine, about waking up to the smell of coffee, about learning to decipher the baby's cry, about sleepless nights that ended with a toothless smile at dawn. Charlotte reopened her design studio with a new approach, creating spaces with soul. Each project carried something of her, but also something from the journey she had lived. Clients were moved by the sensitivity in her creations, unaware that behind each color palette was a woman who had learned to rebuild herself before decorating any room. Liam, for his part, stepped away from the big corporate decisions. He delegated, trusted. He was more present at home, more involved with Benjamin, more interested in the small discoveries of everyday life than the headlines of business. The man who once measured success by profits now measured his peace by the sound of his son's laughter. Have you noticed he smiles more when you're around? Maybe he recognizes who's always stayed, even when everything seemed to fall apart. The words no longer needed weight. Lightness took over the everyday. They cooked together on Sundays, read bedtime stories, and collected small victories. Benjamin's first tooth, his first steps, his first drawings held up with magnets on the fridge. There was no ready-made happy ending. What existed was the daily choice to keep loving, even on the hard days. And they chose each other every day. On a sunny Saturday, while Charlotte tended to the plants in the garden and Liam built a fabric tent for Benjamin to play in, James showed up with an old camera and said, "I want to capture this," because no one believes that Liam Carter now builds fabric forts. They laughed. Charlotte took off her straw hat. Benjamin crawled to the shade of the tree, and Liam, with his son in his arms, looked at Charlotte as if still surprised she had stayed. The photo captured exactly that. A moment, but also the eternity of a love that overcame the impossible. They started out of pride, fell because of a lie, and were reborn through the toughest choice, forgiveness. Charlotte and Liam proved that true love doesn't begin perfect. It's built, sometimes among ruins, sometimes through tears. And when two people decide to stay, even after everything, love stops being just a feeling and becomes a daily choice. Now, I ask you, do you believe someone can change for love? Would you forgive someone who hurt you if you saw real regret in their eyes and more? Have you ever experienced a love that started the wrong way, but taught you everything the right one never could? Drop a comment below. I really want to know what this story awakened in you. And of course, tell me where you're tuning in from. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share with someone who also believes that love can and should have a second chance.